Welcome to another episode of Film Fetish. As usual, I'm your host CJ. And today I want to talk about a genre of film that is quite an enigma, the underwater monster movie. The series was quite prominent in the late 80s and sort of died off in the early 90s. That's not to say the genre completely died though. At random points in the mid 90s to early 2000s, an underwater monster movie would rear its head, but it never fully flourished as it did in the 80s. That brings us to today with the recent release of an incredible homage to the genre and first film on my list, Underwater. Directed by William Eubank, writer and director of the 2011 film Love, Underwater stars Kristen Stewart as an engineer on a deep-sea drilling rig that moments into the film suffers catastrophic damage, providing the catalyst for the rest of the movie. Also starring is one of my all-time favorites, Vincent Cassel, and providing the comedy relief is Deadpool's TJ Miller. Now the thing about Underwater is front and center, it's a disaster flick. The creatures of the movie don't appear on screen until the last 20 minutes, but due to Eubank's excellent sound design, their presence is felt and heard throughout the entire runtime. Another great thing is its pacing. Once the shit hits the fan, there is barely time to catch your breath as the survivors race against the clock to make it to safety. Adding to the quick pace is the brutality. There are 2 deaths in the film that are impressively graphic and unexpected. Mind you, this is a PG-13 movie. I won't spoil anything more than that. Just know that you're in for a beautifully shot monster movie with practical sets, amazing sound design, and a hauntingly beautiful soundtrack. Now to the next film on my list and personal favorite 90s sea monster movie, Deep Rising. Released January of 1998, it was directed by Stephen Sommers, who directed another one of my favorites, The Mummy remake starring Brendan Fraser. Deep Rising is a great example of an old school horror comedy, where it's a horror film first and a comedy second. Sommers did a great job of balancing the two, as Treat Williams' one-liners intersect with a horrific death scene. For the creatures of the movie, they're fully CG and are pretty dated 22 years later, but as a kid, the giant tube-like creatures were absolutely terrifying, and their full form at the end of the film, even more so. Now, the film is not a masterpiece on any level, but it is a fun, gory creature feature that will keep you hooked until the great gotcha ending. Next up is Leviathan. It's a 1989 deep-sea creature feature directed by George Cosmatos, director of the amazing western Tombstone starring Kurt Russell. The film is well known for the fact it has creature effects that were designed by the legendary Stan Winston. And it's odd, because the creature is only vaguely seen throughout the film, as its form is clearly based off the shape-shifting nightmare in John Carpenter's The Thing. That's not to say it's not cool looking. When you do see it, the final form is a horrifying fish monster that resembles what kind of nightmares I imagine fishermen have. Leviathan stars Peter Weller of RoboCop fame and Ernie Ghostbusters Hudson as members of a deep-sea mining crew who stumble upon a sunken Russian vessel that was performing experiments to enhance the human ability to live underwater. 80s. The film is slow. The first hour is building up the inevitable man versus monster battle, and the ending is quite campy, but overall it's a ton of fun for fans of this type of movie. Number 4 on my list is the 1995 B-movie Proteus. Directed by Bob Keane, who gave us the amazingly cringy kids movie To Catch a Yeti. Proteus is another loosely based film adaptation of a John Brosnan novel, After Carnosaur, and I've not gotten to read the book, but I hope it's as ridiculous and fun as the movie. The film follows a group of heroin smugglers hiding out on a seemingly abandoned oil rig. Turns out the rig was a host of genetic experiments that led to the creation of a shape-shifting shark monster who absorbs people and with them their memories. This leads to my favorite thing about the movie. The titular monster has a heroin addiction, and it's hilariously shown on screen snorting it up late into the movie. This is by far the most B of the movies on this list, and a great example of cheesy fun. The monster's a puppet, the actors spin the movie trying to overact each other, and the plot steals from so many other movies, it's kind of amazing. Check it out ASAP. Lastly, we head back to 1989 with Deepstar 6. A deep-sea monster movie directed by Sean S. Cunningham, creator of my favorite slasher series, Friday the 13th. The film stars Miguel Ferrer of RoboCop and Milan fame, and follows a team of deep-sea explorers who unwittingly unleash an ancient beast of the deep. Now this movie is quite possibly the slowest film on the list, with the monster appearing on screen for roughly 10 minutes, and that's the final 10 minutes of the movie. The rest of the movie is more of a psychological suspense film, as the characters struggle to survive as their vessel starts to fall apart around them, literally. The acting is great, with every actor making you believe in their struggle. Also great is the monster design. The beast resembles a giant sea scorpion. You'll have to Google it. It has a scientific name, but I'm not going to be the one to butcher it. Overall, a fun movie if you're willing to tough out the slow, weird tone shifts and lack of monster moments. Those were my recommendations for great underwater monster movies. That was a super fun list for me to make, but what are your recommendations? Have any lists you'd like to see me do? Leave those in the comments below. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. This has been Film Fetish. I'm your host CJ, and remember, keep it lowbrow.